Meeting of the Medford Township Council. Notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by 1. Posting a copy of the agenda on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the township website. 2. Filing a copy of the agenda in the office of the township clerk at the municipal building. 3. Forwarding a copy of the agenda to the central record in the Burlington County Times. 4. Forwarding written notice to each person who has requested copies of the regular meeting schedule. All of the above posting, filing, and mailing have taken place on the 18th of January 2013. You all rise for flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Beanstalk?
Here.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Boney?
Here.
Mayor Chekai?
Here. All right, next item on the agenda, communications. 1, County Library communications.
That would be me. Last week I had an email exchange with a couple of the freeholders. One of the new freeholders, one of the old freeholders, as it relates to the library agreement. Asked for an update. They didn't have anything new to add, and it's still in their hands, still under review. It isn't on their agenda, or wasn't on their agenda for their executive session, and as of earlier this afternoon, they have not posted the agenda for their meeting tomorrow. So how soon they're going to get back to us is anybody's guess. But the freeholders are aware it's in their pipeline.
Who exactly did you reach out to?
Lee Arter again, because she's been involved in the process with us from the start, from our first communication with them.
Okay.
And the new freeholder in the building. And they both got back with me. Lee Arter via email and Amy Belder via telephone.
Is Leah Hartner still the liaison to the county this year? I guess she was last year when we got there.
That I couldn't tell you. I can't imagine that they would switch, but I couldn't tell you. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on that? All right, if not. Next meeting is February 5th, 2013, here at the Public Safety Building. Minutes, we have a bunch of sessions, minute sessions, November 20th, executive session, December 21st, regular meeting and executive session, January 1st, regular meeting and executive session, and January 8th, regular session and executive session. Everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes. Are there any additions, corrections to the minutes? If not, can I have a motion?
Or any abstentions?
Any
Yeah,
abstentions?
just defense.
Okay. Or any abstentions? All right. If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, manager's report. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. First, there are a couple of agenda. One addition to executive session is from last meeting, Resolution 16-2013, which was authorizing town council intent to call out a credit posted by Village Point Bridge under litigation. We got some information from the attorney today that needs to be discussed. The other item that needs to be moved into exec that I expect to come back out in action to be taken is Resolution 18-2013 authorizing a settlement of litigation. And that's to discuss just a language clarification item in that item. As far as my report, we started the third week on sanitation implementation. We have had some delay issues. that has settled down greatly. I have not gotten a report yet today as far as the routes today and whether there was any delay or misses today. We met with the vendor last Wednesday to understand some of the issues. We do know of one of their brand new trucks, the engine already went in it and that had returned to manufacturer. They're using rear loading, but the round cans that we have still out in the community are not designed to the retrofit rear loading ones that towns use. Metro Lakes, for example, has a rear loading. We have a retrofit that allows the automated cans, the newer ones with the bars, to be picked up and moved. So they're using traditional rear loading in some areas that have caused some delay until they get that truck back. But we're keeping on it. We expected some bumps, but things have drastically quieted down over the first 2 weeks so far. We need to remind residents to call in for bulk up to 24 hours. That allows us to be more efficient in the routing of the pickup instead of the trucks just running all over town as we used to do. This would give us precise locations so that we can route the trucks and get them there. The other issue is the commercials. We have still 300 gallon containers in the community, almost 99% of them without lids, which means we're probably paying for a lot of water weight. When you run those numbers, that's probably an additional $75,000 to $100,000 in tipping fees annually that the community is basically paying the overhead cost of those 100 businesses utilizing those. Most towns do not provide what we provide to our commercial entities. That's a policy decision, but the ordinance does provide that we can remove those containers if they're broken or basically out of use. We can't replace the lids. The lids are no longer made for those containers. We said that last year. So those containers are going to be pulled over the next few weeks. And under the new ordinance, the businesses will get a 90-gallon container, and much like the majority of our businesses going to have to privately haul. It's going to save additional dollars to the town that we're paying in tipping fees. But under the new ordinance, I need to promulgate rules. So those rules will be promulgated over the next couple of weeks. Brought back to council, they'll be publicized for the community to be able to have input in. That was the design of the new ordinance, to allow the community to have input into that. But just be aware that these things are going on.
So you're going to be picking up the 300 gallons?
We're going to be, over the next few weeks, we're going to send notices out reminding. We started this process last year with those businesses that had more than they were supposed to have by ordinance. And again, historically, the township didn't enforce its own ordinance. The ordinance provided that businesses got one 300-gallon container. It was then interpreted at some point that they were able to get two. But we still have some that have 11. It just was allowed to expand.
11 300 gallon?
11. So some were pulled in, some have not been. We're going to resend letters just to the targeted those businesses. And we're coming again. They're at the town's property. A day like the other day when it rained, I don't know how much water is in those. They're paying for water weight, they're paying for business weight, that is an overhead cost. So
And how many businesses do we have out there that have more than the...
that's a very small number. It's less than 20 now. The bigger number is that we continue to provide services that are not typical in other communities. Maybe in some, but the vast majority do not do what we've been doing. We're allowed to let it proliferate as we have done, and it's causing some issues with that component of the transition. So trees, if your trees are out, this is the second week of the operational pickup period. We're still getting some calls about the yard. I can tell you, based on our manpower at this point in time, I will be recommending, we're recommending now that we can open the yard one day a week. Probably Wednesday would be the optimal day, smack in the middle of the week. We can't accommodate every person's schedule. We do get calls. I can only come on Tuesdays. Look, there's 8,400 line items in the town. We can't, unfortunately, right now, as we go through this and we're trying to be dynamic and keeping our costs controlled, but still trying to bring services back. again, the yard open during the week is relatively new to the town. It only started in early 2011. You always had the Saturdays available, but you didn't have it during the week. When the town swapped that, obviously we have a group of the town that got used to the weekday hours. And so we're trying to find that compromise where we're still doing what we're doing. Curbside, twice a month bulk, which is more than we've had, and then trying to get some yard hours back. The yard is available for recycling materials. And we're still trying to figure out a configuration that will allow 24/7 access with the camera. So again, a lot of this is still fluid, subject to change as we've been telling people, but we had to take a step back because we had 9 people left in that unit, not counting the 2 supervisors and the department head. And we have to be able to have those people available. We're still collecting leaves. We're at the tail end of Zone 4. Zone 4 and 5 are traditionally your heaviest zones with leaves. So we're in that area now. We have 3 machines. So we're going as fast and hard as we can right now with the resources we have.
Is it a manpower issue with the leaves more, or is it more the equipment?
You can only have so many people raking in that vacuum truck, vacuuming sucking the leaves off. I mean, it's a combination. We have more vehicles, more equipment, more people. The town did outsource that, as we talked about in the past, but that outsourcing cost was almost a couple $100,000.
I've seen other towns using front-end loaders.
They're different methods. The front-end loader still requires manpower to rake the leaves curb off. In other words, when the towns that do it that way, and my former town did it that way, you have to have the manpower now to rake all those leaves from the grass onto the street so that scooper picks it up.
Now it's more labor intensive.
You need labor to be able to pull that out. Right now, the areas that we've already been through, those that have leaves still on the street are in violation of not just local ordinance, they're in violation of state law. We're going to be sending notice to the homeowners alliance first, reminding people that they're in violation. We're going to talk with Public Works about sending out letters and notice as we talked about last year. So it's still a lot of things going on. Brush, I did say, and we are going to move the brush schedule. Remember, just to clarify with everybody, originally the program was set up at post-referendum that we needed to make sure we had enough staffing to cover the services we were going to provide. So we couldn't have overlap in some situations. So the bulk was supposed to be quarterly, and we designed that around the leaf collection program and the brush collection. Brush was going to be February and March, which is probably a little early. Most people won't get out to do spring cleanup until March, April. But now that we're able to provide curbside bulk again, that frees us up and our ability to move and shift that brush collection. So we're going to shift the spring one to a March, April pickup, and we'll get that notice out. But again, we're able to do that now, coming out of the implementation, because our staff's not tied up, still doing bulk. So that's kind of where we're at.
And how is the vendor been picking up the bulk? Have there been issues associated with?
Actually, no, not to my knowledge. Last week he was concerned. They based their pickup on an average number per pickup. We had 90 calls last week, and he was not sure he was going to get to all 90. But they got done. So I think it's still just a feeling out. It's post-Christmas. A lot of people still putting stuff out. So again, we're monitoring it, but yeah, he was able to get the bulk done last week without any issue.
Now, as far as the leaf pickup for next year, have we looked at the model where maybe we blend using township employees and also bring in extra capacity?
We're doing that now.
Oh, okay.
We're actually much more efficient this year. We're using a supplemental labor force to do most of the raking while our guys and girls drive. But remember, we have leaf crews out, and we have other people doing other things too. We can't focus them all there. It is an overtime issue. A lot of towns, including in my travels, the leaf program is built around having some level of overtime. So you work basically Monday through Friday with an hour or two overtime until dark, and then you come in on a Saturday and try to squeeze that time. We cannot, under our contract, labor contracts, we cannot use the supplemental for the overtime, which causes a logistical problem because they come as one group. And if you have one public works employee who says, I'll work overtime, or you know, you're going to have one labor-ready guy sitting doing nothing while the other 5 are helping the one. So it's become a logistical thing. Plus, we have to swap the crews out. Our crews get done at 3 o'clock, say. Now they have to get out to where our brush or our leaf collection is to swap out the labor-ready people. So it's kind of been partly a contract issue. But I think we worked that out a little bit. So going into next year, obviously I'm working on the budget. I'm not saying today, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea, that we could add a collection. We are looking at whether the first 2 zones instead of 1 zone might be optional to do this two collections because it was so early. A lot of complaints on the leaves fell. You gotta understand the 2 complaints we get the most of are the leaves fell late and Christmas. You know, the leaves fall late and it's December. That gives us 30, 24 days till Christmas to collect 80. You know, not everybody puts the leaves out, but you have 8,400 potential line items that could put leaves out. We work in an equity model. We cannot get to everybody. It just doesn't work that way. That's a market model. You want a market model. We talked about a market model. You hire your own, and we get out of the business.
Well, this year they fell out of it for me.
Yeah, it all depends on Mother Nature. So this is all work in progress. I'll remind people that when I came here, I said 2 to 3 year process. We're in year 2 now. You know, things have come down a little bit. You know, now we're starting, you know, budget's going to be a little different dynamic this year because of the way we took care of the referendum last year. But we still have issues like any other town. I mean, we're still dealing with a lot of this cost containment, cost control, revenues. We'll have the revenue reports, I guess, in the next week or 2. Books are being closed out. You know, the economy hasn't changed much as far as you know, we're not making any interest on our accounts, things like that. So, you know, we've got to look at all that.
Let's revisit the yard for a second. You were going to say that the possibility of opening it up 1 day during the week, and how long would that be for?
That would be the day.
Okay, so an 8-hour day?
7 to 3, 7 to 2.
Okay, I mean, is there a possibility of perhaps splitting that and saying doing 2 days for 4 hours?
Sure. I got to talk to the public works director. Our whole goal was, can we free one person up for a certain number of hours that he had doing other things?
Right, I'm just thinking in terms of, even if you give him 4 hours, say morning hours, 2 days.
Yeah, we can look at that.
I mean, the question would be, how much do you get during the course of the day, and when's the heaviest time period? And that's where you concentrate the hour. Now, then again, you may tell me it's littered throughout the day, so maybe 1 day is the best way to do it.
Check.
That's it?
If I may, I was in the township building a few days last week in Public Works, the staff office. I took phone calls from residents, reviewed some questions and issues they were having, and then spent a considerable amount of time driving around and taking a look at the as-is condition as it relates to leaves, bulk, recycle, and trash. And I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts, and primarily for the public. The leaves don't go on the road. They impact Public Works' ability to effectively pick the leaves up, pick the trash up, and pick the recycle up. Same with bulk trash. The new requirement is to contact the township as it relates to bulk. If you don't contact the township and you just put it out like it's always been, and then you call to complain that your bulk hasn't been picked up, you know, obviously the people at Public Works aren't going to know if you didn't call them and notify them. And they keep pretty good records in a computer database who actually calls. as it relates to recycle, the county, Burlington County actually picks up your recycle, and how, you know, this escapes most people. It used to escape me until after about my second year living in Medford. I figured out it was a county truck and not a township truck. They were different people. But last week on Wednesday, I think it was, I took 4 calls from residents that were complaining that recyclables hadn't been picked up. And I offered them the county's phone number, but they were pretty upset and they wanted me to come pick up their recyclables. And I can appreciate that. But again, the county is responsible for recyclables. One of the as-is conditions I found were on Tuesday, which was the recycle day, is people put out their trash cans right next to their recycle can, and they're touching. Well, if the trash truck comes first and it has an automated arm, it can't grab the can. So now you're adding to the workload. I think most people don't stop and think about it, and for the most part, if nobody ever mentions it to them, they're not going to. You can help yourself by placement of your cans, placement of your bulk, placement of your leaves. All of this impacts at 8,400, you know, line items, people being served over the course of a week. You can actually generate work for 3 people. Well, we don't have that kind of manpower. So obviously these things, you know, compound the problem. So for those of you that are here this evening, I would encourage you to speak with your neighbors politely and remind them that, hey, you can help us by helping yourself. Don't put your leaves in the road. That's not where they belong. Okay? If any, I would ask all of you to drive around Medford, drive a new street that you haven't driven in before, and find out how many leaves are in the road. That's not where they belong. It's a problem. They go down in the drains. Anyway, here's my point. We're all in this together. We all have to take an active role. Okay? So again, like I said, speak politely to your neighbors. Before you call the township with a complaint, check and make sure you're not part of the problem, that you're becoming part of the solution. We all want what we want. You know, we're not going to pick up tree trunks anymore. How many people in Medford know that? Same number of people that know the county picks up recyclables. We're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Proceed.
The next item is just budget guidance, local finance notice, issued local finance notice 2013-4, which is pretty much standard now, where the local finance board extends the statutory budget deadlines because of state issues relative to them getting a state aid number and things of that nature. So the Faulkner Act, which is Medford, the statutory date was 1/15, it's been revised to 2/1, which is a Friday. I traditionally transmitted that first meeting after that, which is acceptable. The next meeting, 2/5, I will be transmitting to council. The municipal introduction and approval has been moved from February 10th to March 15th, and the adoption to April 26th. Again, the state does allow some leeway, but they've gotten tighter and tighter if you don't meet those deadlines. Transitional aid, not, again, I'm just throwing this out there, but we're not in a position, obviously, this year that we were last year. That's March 15th for those applications. And so just be aware of those numbers, of dates and times. Next item is approval of a raffle permit for Elizabeth Clement Shawnee Man Karen Association. It was investigated, the application has been completed, found to be bona fide organization, having any members in control and management of the raffle. And please have no further information that would be not approving this. So it's recommending council approve the raffle for Shawnee Man. Mayor, I don't know if you want to do that by voice, or you want me to wait and do them all.
The question is, at least on the fire and EMS, are they here? Andrew Matthews or Joshua Meeks? No? Okay, all right. You might as well just go through them all.
Okay. Next item is the Robert Gucci MYAA ABC special permit for a social affair for January 26, 2013, 7 p.m. to midnight. Again, investigated by the police department. Nothing that would preclude them from being authorized to permit, and it's recommended council approve that. Volunteer for
Real quick, Mr. Manager, I just want it noted that it's by ticket only, even though it's MYAA and alcohol is being served, no children will be there.
application for Daniel Matthews as a junior member with both fire and EMS stations 252 and 258. Completed his background check and negative information was found. Again, a junior member, as well as Joshua Meeks as a new member with the Union Fire Station, Station 251, pending a physical, but he's passed all the other background process.
Okay. Can I have a voice vote on items 3 through 6 of the manager's report? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Thank you.
Approval is granted.
And the last item was just, last year the county began a master plan bicycle master plan process. The council had myself and Larry McDonald from Wheelies Bike Shop attend the first meeting. The second step in this process are 2 public meetings to be held. The first one is Thursday, January 24th at the Burlington County Department of Resource Conservation at 624 Pemberton Brunsville Road, Pemberton, from 4 p.m. to 7. The second one is 4 p.m. to 7, Wednesday, January 30th at the Roebling Museum, 102nd Avenue, Roebling, New Jersey. These are open house style where they'll have displays typically around the room. People can come and go within those 3 hours, ask questions, give them input. That data then will be put into this process, and then there'll be another meeting somewhere later in the spring with the steering committee before this gets to a final draft report, and then a report that would be issued out to all the municipalities. So I'm just announcing that for our public benefit, and we can post that on the website as well.
Are you or Larry going?
I may make an appearance, but these are typically just to get public input. And that's all I have here.
Back to the budget guidance.
Yes.
Are you on track for?
Well, you will have a budget guide in February.
And how far along are you?
It's progressing. I can tell you, I mean, I've been having several negotiations going on simultaneously. The preparation has been the first in my 15 years, so it's been trying to juggle that. It's been pretty difficult. We're getting there.
Is there anything that you need assistance with?
Well, we have 2 items in executive tonight, and that may take care of 2 of them.
Okay.
So we'll address that in executive as it relates to that union.
Okay, good, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right, next item is discussion items. First item is the Stark Village Rehabilitation Study presentation.
I'll let you go first.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Taylor, and most of you know who I am. I'm president of Taylor Design Group. And I wanted to introduce Cheryl Bordello of our firm. She is a highly qualified planner, graduated around the same time I did from Rutgers University. I've known her for that long. And she's highly qualified to talk about this plan with you this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. As the council may recall, we were asked by the township to look at 2 areas in the township to see if they qualified as rehabilitation areas under the New Jersey Local Redevelopment and Housing Law. And that particular law allows towns to designate areas as redevelopment areas and/or rehabilitation areas. The rehabilitation area designation does not allow the town to use eminent domain. So this is a tool for towns to use to help property owners rehabilitate their properties, but the town cannot condemn the properties under this designation. So the first area we looked at was the HBC zone, the Historic Village Commercial Zone, which is along Main Street between Route 70 and Chapel Avenue. And in order for the area to qualify as a rehab area, the area has to meet at least one of the 3 criteria in the state statute. And the criteria are, 1, a significant portion of structures are deteriorated, vacant, and have a persistent arrearage of property tax payments. 2, more than half of the housing stock is at least 50 years of age or older. Or the sewer and water systems are at least 50 years of age or older and are in need of substantial maintenance or repair. And the third criteria is that a program of rehabilitation may be expected to prevent further deterioration and promote the overall development of the community. So the area overall has to meet at least one of those criteria. So when I looked at the HBC zone area, which is your historic area, many of the structures are 100 years old. Some of them were built in the 1700s. The area is adequately maintained, even well maintained. But property owners who have historic properties have to pay a tremendous amount of money to keep them up and to even improve them. So the area contains 55 dwelling units, of which 45 are at least 50 years of age or older. So right there, the study area meets the criteria, the housing stock majority is at least 50 years of age or older. And also, it's my opinion that the study area, if it were deemed a rehabilitation area, would be expected to prevent further deterioration, particularly if a plan is adopted to promote rehabilitation in the area. And also, once designated, the township can implement 5-year property tax abatements or exemptions on improvements to the property. So the initial basis of property tax payment wouldn't change, but if a property owner improved the property through an addition on the building or an improvement to the parking area, they wouldn't pay tax on that increment of improvement for a period of 5 years.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Because my understanding between the difference between rehabilitation and redevelopment was that, in essence, the only difference is the inability to do condemnation. But this is not quite the same as being able to enter into a pilot agreement.
Redevelopment allows you to do a 30-year pilot and a 30-year, which are called long-term tax exemptions and abatements. So if you have the redevelopment area, you can do condemnation and you can do 30-year abatements.
Okay, which I have no interest in a 30-year abatement, but it sounds like this is a very narrow window that where we are not only, we really can't enter into a pilot agreement at all. A 5-year pilot agreement where we could look at the totality of the taxes paid on the property, but rather we can only look at new improvements to the property.
I think there are certain nuances that your council can help you negotiate. What specific exemptions and abatements are permitted. There's different exemptions and abatements permitted for commercial properties versus residential properties. So there are some ways to finesse the abatements, depending on what type of ordinance you want to adopt.
How much work would it require to take the question for that?
So this step,
It is limited to improvements.
Is it limited to improvements if it were redevelopment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember, the long-term tax exemption law is also, the purpose of it is to promote new development.
I'm just trying to understand what was going on with that process. The reason that was the whole property is because there was actually cosmetic.
There was nothing there to begin with. Everything is the improvement.
There was no rehabilitation.
But there was nothing there, you're talking about setting value on vacant land versus improvement.
Nor was there any redevelopment.
So in my opinion, the HBC zone does meet the criteria for designation as a rehabilitation area. And the steps are outlined in my letter to the council, and your solicitor can help you navigate that. The designation is adopted by resolution, whereas redevelopment areas are adopted by ordinance. So the rehab process is much, much simpler and doesn't require public notice, so you don't have to notify all those property owners. So that is that area.
Can I just ask you one question on the number of structures in the study area? Do you know just roughly what percentage of them are residential and which are not?
There's 101 parcels and 55 have dwelling units.
So the others do not have,
Right.
not residential?
Correct. And the 55 dwelling units are in mixed-use structures mostly, apartments and commercial. .8% of the dwelling units are at least 50 years in age.
One more question. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Do you know, this may be for Mr. Schultz or Mr. Brown, has the township adopted an ordinance for a program of maybe 5-year tax abatement as well?
I'm not aware of one. That's something that they looked into, but I don't believe the town has one.
So we have to do that.
Because typically, that's part of my budget. I've done those in the previous town where that becomes part of my budget message on those abatements coming on and off. So I update council that happens.
So if we were going to utilize that, we have to go
Sure.
through that process as well.
And one of the next steps in this process is for this to go to the planning board for their review and comment, which is included in our scope of work. So we will appear at the planning board at their next available meeting, whenever it can be scheduled, and talk to them about it, and then it will come back to you for your action. So that's the HBC zone. We also were asked to look at the Tidswell Avenue area. And the Tidswell Avenue area is primarily commercial structures in the PI zone. So that area is located generally along Broad Street and Tidswell, and contains those commercial and warehouse buildings. There's an auto repair business, and it also includes the 2 residences in the RHO zone on the northeast side of Tidswell and Broad. And that area, again, we looked at whether it met those 3 criteria I spoke of before. Underutilization and property tax arrearages, which neither of the areas met. The second criteria was housing stock at least 50 years of age or older, or water and sewer 50 years of age or older in need of substantial repair and maintenance. And the third criteria was that designation would help promote rehabilitation of the area. So the Tidswell Avenue area, which you can see in my report what properties in particular it contains, and I can go through them if you want me to. In my opinion, this area does meet the rehabilitation designation criteria. There's a letter from your township engineer where he reported on the age of the infrastructure and that it's 50 years of age or older, and it is in need of substantial maintenance and repair. So by meeting that criteria alone, the area meets the rehab designation criteria. Also, there's 2 houses in the area, and they're both greater than 50 years in age. They were both built in the 1920s. So the area meets criteria 2, and in my opinion, it meets criteria 3 because adoption of a rehabilitation area and all the benefits that that brings is expected to promote rehabilitation in the area.
Mr. Moran, I have one question for you as it relates to the 5-year tax abatement. And this was a question that was posed to me by one of the property owners on Main Street. There are a couple of properties that have been substantially improved within the past 6 months. If we send this to planning and we move forward with this, say within a specified time frame, does the state allow us to look back and include those property improvements at all for somebody that's already improved their property within, a specified time period? In other words, do we have
Can you
any
make it
authority
go
to
retroactive back
Right.
a certain period of time? Off the top, I couldn't answer that question for you. I'll get you that answer by the next meeting.
All right.
But my
answer, it's got to be, you have to submit your application. First, you have to, the municipality has to adopt an ordinance.
Right.
And it specifies the procedure. The statute says that the application has to be submitted and approved prior to the issuance of the CF. So, or actually, it's either the building permit or the CF. But if the work is complete, then it's not eligible for the 5-year tax.
And that's kind of what I was.
And that kind of makes sense because if it was stagnant, we would have developed.
The whole point is to promote new development.
Right.
Right. Development is already done, then it's not guys for this stuff.
So we have to pass the ordinance or by resolution, but by resolution send it to the planning board?
You have two separate processes.
The ordinance is for the 5-year abatement.
The ordinance is for the.
So that's in any instance that we would do that.
Once we have that ordinance, once we have the program set up by ordinance, then in any area that we designated either as in need of development or in need of rehabilitation qualify for this program.
And that's not property by property, that's the whole
In the area.
So if you decide to send this on to the planning board, we will appear before them and discuss it with them, and then we will return to you again.
We have a meeting tomorrow night, but I would say that.
I think council has to take an action on resolution, which would be at the meeting of the 5th. That would make the referral, so the February meeting, this would go to the planning board and have back to council the first probably meeting in March at the planning board.
So it's two resolutions. The first resolution is to refer to the planning board, and the second would be to consider that referral and to add on to the resolution.
Now, and the only other question I would have would be in regards to the tax abatement is once we establish these areas as redevelopment zones, is it a blanket 5 years for everyone, regardless of the amount of work or improvement that they make, or how do you determine what level of abatement you're going to offer?
I think it's set up so that it phases back in. So for it goes 20, 40, 60, 80. Sorry, that was 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. The 5th year, it's 100%. The numbers being the percentage of the regular taxes that would be otherwise did.
All right, can we set the dollar amount that they have to invest in?
I'm not sure.
I think that's fixed. Well, you got a policy.
No, he's saying, we say a minimum amount you have to spend.
Oh, minimum, all right.
Right, a guy can put in a new window and say, hey, I improved my building.
Yeah, but he's only gonna get
Based on
an
the
abatement on
increase
that.
in the-
Right.
Yeah, that's not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
He's not gonna get reassessed for it.
Yeah, I think the
But we
answer
can
is
determine-
we could do, I think there can be some level that we can set in the program.
I don't think we would need to, though.
What about the minimum or the max, or
Either. Again, I want to know what leeway we have in setting those parameters. If we're going to deem, certainly the area needs rehabilitation. And the whole idea here is to improve the area, attract new business to Medford Township. In attracting that new business, the goal is to increase the rateables. Well, if we're giving 5-year tax abatements for every property owner, we're going to take a hit in taxes initially, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know.
That's all new stuff.
It's only on new.
It's all new.
You're not decreasing the existing taxes on the existing structures. So
It's all the new
you're
stuff.
just giving a lower tax rate on any new construction, which was asked.
Okay, so it's gonna have to be substantial improvements to where it substantially
Meaningful,
affects
yeah.
their.
For them, yeah, they meaningful. But any improvements are positive.
Right, that's completely independent of this designation. We can go forward with this designation.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm prepared to do so.
But can we set percentages on an individual basis, or I guess that would be my question. Would people, I'd love to be able to give people options. That's just me being a sales rep.
My suggestion would be, the next meeting, we list, if the council's interested in the 5-year program, we have that discussion separate.
Can it be 2 years? Does it have to be, I guess, well, we'll have to,
See what limits.
I'll fire off a bunch of questions.
There we go, moving on.
And the question is too, when we set up the ordinance, would it cover both rehabilitation and redevelopment?
Well, you have redevelopment areas in town.
No, if we set up the program.
The program would apply to construction, so it wouldn't really make a distinction between rehabilitation and redevelopment. In addition, that would qualify. If you include your home and the results of increased assessment, it could apply to that increased assessment.
But do we want that?
Residential and commercial?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you do.
But only if it's in the zone.
It's got.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
It's not blanket.
That's fine, I mean,
Well, it can only be, so you can't instead of.
but this is a rehabilitation designation. Can we impose that 5-year on redevelopment as well?
Redevelopment zone, yes, yes.
Okay, so we can limit that to 5 versus the 30, which is doesn't matter.
No, I wouldn't have. 30 could be less than 30. There's 2 different statutes, the 5-year tax exemption law and the long-term tax exemption. And the long-term is 30, the 5 years 5. 30 can be less than 30, 15 under the long term.
Well, we'd have to set up a separate ordinance to the redevelopment.
For the 5-year tax exemption, you got to do a separate ordinance. You don't need an ordinance under the long-term tax exemption.
Okay, all right, that answers the question. Any other questions? Done? Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Mayor, does council want to move this to a resolution for the next meeting?
Yeah, I think
I believe we do.
It's a whole board.
Yeah,
We'll prepare those.
absolutely. Okay, all right, next item, discussion item is reinstatement of council salaries. And this was an item that I specifically asked the manager to put on the agenda. And the reason I asked for it is very simple. I wanted it to be publicly discussed. There's no real action required here because we have an ordinance in place that provides for council salaries. That ordinance was passed back in 2010 and it provides for a list of all the salaries and wages of all the employees of the town. And council persons are listed under an annual salary, and the salaries are as follows. For mayor, it is $5,458, and for council persons, it is $5,458. Absolutely no difference between the two. Everyone is treated equally, as it were. So, the reason I wanted it on the agenda was very simple. It could have been just inserted into the budget, and we could have moved on. without any further ado, because we do have an ordinance that provides for it. But again, I wanted to make sure that we discussed it publicly before we move forward with it. And, in the interest of transparency and openness that, we've tried to display here over the last year or so. So, I mean, that's the story, as it were. I mean, last year, we didn't take a salary, as it were. I mean, quite frankly, that money was used to pay for, in my view, for the referendum that happened. That was about a $30,000 expense, and that's primarily what the salaries would have added up to, about $25,000, $27,000.
I know I paid 30-something out of that one. Have to
So, I mean, that was our contribution towards that, but I mean, going forward, I mean, there are expenses associated with this position. I mean, it's not a matter of saying, well, gee whiz, you guys get paid. It's a matter of there are expenses associated with it. I mean, very simple thing, holding in my hand. This costs money to operate, costs money for a data plan. I use this almost exclusively, well, I shouldn't say exclusively, but probably 70% of it I use for township business. Email, data plan, everything. And we all know how expensive those plans are. My employer provides this thing for free. They just give it to me. So, again, my employer is basically subsidizing Medford Township government through the use of that, and I think my colleagues are in the same boat here, as it were. And that's just one item in terms of the expenses that we incur in order to conduct township business that we got nothing for last year. And, it needs to be rectified in terms of our ability to recover those expenses. I mean, we pay taxes just like everybody else in town, the same rate as everybody else. And I think that at the very least that we shouldn't be out of pocket for conducting township business. So I'll open it up. Anybody else have comments, questions?
I'll say this. There's going to be a public portion. The way we set up the meetings now is we run through our discussion items.
Thank you.
Then we have the public portion. That way, whatever we discuss, you can hit it.
Got it.
When you want to go up here and explain whatever the issue you have. This is a huge investment of time, everybody knows that. And we sign up for that. And I'm okay with the investment of time. The salary amount, $5,400, is a meager amount. It's not a lot of money, okay? But it's enough to cover my expenses that I incur doing this. And it's more than just that. I have a lot of opportunity costs that I lose. And I'm not going to get into it. If you want, we can talk about specific lines, and I will talk to you offline. I'm not putting it on the record. So they've come to me personally, and I've lost a substantial portion of business. They told me the political thing's killing me. I'm not getting the service I want anymore. I'm not working with you anymore. Okay, it's cost me tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm not whining about that. But the fact is that there are demands on our life, and it's not a lot of people put forward this idea that this is a volunteer position. There are some things that we volunteer for as part of this position, but there are demands on my life. There's an expectation that I attend every meeting. There's an expectation that I go to events. There's an expectation that I interview people who submit applications. There's an expectation that I read 100, 200 pages of legislation every month, actually every other week. There's an expectation of committing tens of hours a week of time. And there's a good reason for that expectation. I'm an employee. And the salary of $5,400 is a token amount. It's not going to make or break me. However, my family's given up an awful lot. Okay, my wife gives up having me at dinner a lot of nights. She gives up having the ability to talk to me. She gives up having me walk in the phone without having a phone in my ear. 5, 6, 7 nights a week, I got that stupid phone in my ear, talking to someone. And now I have to ask her to give up her wealth too. I have to ask her to give up her discretionary spending, because you know what? If I go out to lunch with someone, who wants to talk township business, guess who pays the bill? I do. Because nobody's allowed to buy me lunch, nobody's allowed to buy me a beer, nobody's allowed to buy me anything. Anyone who's been out with you can tell you. Okay, I gotta drive 30, 40, 50 miles to go be a delegate on behalf of Medford Township. That's an expense to me. Okay? $3, $4 not a gallon for gasoline, driving back and forth, plus wear and tear on my car. I don't have any problem taking the salary. I understand that people have lost jobs as a result of some of the actions that have taken place here. And that's been a real difficulty for all of us. But we're not asking anyone to work for free. And, you know, I know that the work that we're doing here is valuable work. I see what these men up here do. I see what the people are committing themselves to every single day. You know, a worker is worthy of his hire. I'm very clearly, I believe that this amount of money is appropriate. I'm not asking for anything more, but we paid for the referendum last year out of our own pockets. It's not a referendum this year. I'm not paying for the referendum this year. It's just not. And that's all I have to say.
Anyone else?
I'd like to comment, Mr. Mayor. Hard to follow up on what Chris said. I agree wholeheartedly with most of what he said. And I thought very long and hard about this. And, you know, maybe part of it's because since I was a young man in Boy Scouts through being a volunteer fireman for 20-some years here, and then a youth leader, a young adult leader, and all those things I volunteered to do cost me money, and I didn't get anything back for them. And so I've got this mindset that that's what I'm used to doing. And I'm willing to do that again for the township. I think we're still in a tough position here. We've got a budget deficit that we don't know 100% what it is yet, but we've got money to make up here. And I agree with the deputy mayor. I mean, this job costs me, this position costs me money. I was here at the township office for 6 hours New Year's Eve, where I normally would have been working New Year's Eve. And there's many days I leave early, and the cell phone calls and the gas, and I understand that. I personally have a hard time taking a salary this year with what everything that's going on and what the financial status of the township.
I agree with Councilman Watson and Deputy Mayor Goins. I appreciate everything you say, especially.
Speak in the mic, please.
I appreciate everything that you say, especially with the emotion with which you speak. I understand that. I feel that a lot of it too. I understand the desire for a salary. I feel I'm concerned about the timing. The township is in a very fragile financial position. Council did not take a salary last year or the year before, which was when the financial problems arose, and we're not out of it. We heard a bit about it tonight. We still have financial problems. To me, it's about sacrifice. We have asked residents, we've asked employees to make sacrifices, and this is part of the sacrifice that I see in my role as a member of council. That it's important, I see, that we lead by example, and by not taking salary, to me, it's hard to ask some of our employees to make the sacrifices that we've asked. For example, we have non-union statutory employees who are entitled by law to take increases in their salaries over the last 3 years, and they voluntarily elected not to do that. It's hard for me to say that they should do that again if I'm going to take a salary. And there's other things that have gone on. We're going to go through this budget process, and there's a lot of things that we're not going to be able to do that residents are going to want us to do. We're going to get through that over the next couple of years. And when we do, and when that happens, then I think the time will be right. But to me, this isn't the time to take a salary. We're into 1 year, into a 2 to 3 year process. And I think it's important that we stick with the way that we're going. And the money, it's $27,000. That $27,000 can be used to do a lot of things. It can be used for additional leaf pickup. It can be used to provide the services that are going to be important. And I think certainly until we know where we are with the budget, I think we have to see where that goes. But I'm very strongly not in favor of salary.
But see, that's, I'll tell you, but we don't know where the budget is yet.
We don't.
Okay, and we're 14 months into this, and it's just, it's killing me.
Well, we're going to know in about 2 weeks.
I understand.
The budget will be transmitted to us at the next meeting. We'll have a better sense. We anticipate where it's going to be. We anticipate there's going to be a substantial deficit that the manager and everybody else is working hard to close.
The other thing is we can start filing expense reports. But I'm out of pocket a lot of money.
But we are entitled to reimbursements, and some of that can cover some of the out-of-pocket expenses. Again, I appreciate everything you said, and I'm there too. It's costing me as well. To me, it's part of the sacrifice that I make as a council person, and I'll continue to make that sacrifice.
All I can do is offer my perspective. I can't speak for the other council members. And I appreciate everybody's.
You probably put in more time than all of us.
It's not about time. I started this process 5 years ago. And in regards to the amount of time, you know, if I had my way, I'd be king and we wouldn't deal with any of this. Okay? I want to do what's best for Medford Township. And I can appreciate Mr. Watson's dedication and the time that he's lived in Medford Township, your longevity. And it means a lot. I was off doing something else at that time. And I retired in 2003, and I took a great deal of pride in the fact that I paid for my health care benefits rather than participating in what was provided me as a result of my retirement from government service for 24 years. LoSAP is provided to volunteers. That's an expense for the township. Medical insurance was provided or coverage was provided to the volunteers. Okay, I can appreciate that they're volunteers, and I appreciate what they do, and we need them. Okay, this township also needs a governing body. And it needs a governing body willing to do the work. Medford Township suffered for decades from men that sat up here, and while they may have been willing to do the work, they failed. They failed miserably. We're $70 million in debt because they failed miserably. I am not going to fail. I refuse to fail. I refuse not to fail. I'm not asking for anything, and I wouldn't ask for anything. I've been doing this for a year, and I asked each one of you gentlemen last year not to take a salary because we were all brand new and we had no idea where this was going to end up. I think we've had a tremendous amount of success over the course of this past year, and you know, we succeeded. We succeeded where others failed. We will continue to succeed. Again, I really appreciate the sentiment that we're all volunteers. Again, I've been doing this for a while now, and I'm not going to stop. I give up every day, and I don't want to be compensated for my time. Quite frankly, the amount of time I spend doing this, we can't afford. Again, am I passionate about it? I'm passionate about doing what's right for Medford Township, and that's not going to change. We have an ordinance. This is on the agenda because it had to be put on the agenda. We're all about transparency. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Manager, included in your budget, if we cut it from the budget, it'll be part of the budget process. That's all I got to say.
Nothing else? I would agree. It goes in the budget, and if we want to cut it, we'll cut it. But it goes in the budget. It should be in the budget in any event, because it's part of the ordinance. And, you know, again, if you know, an individual council person doesn't want it, they can absolutely waive their right to take it and can get cut from the budget. All right, nothing. If there's nothing else, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. Anyone who would care to speak on any of the items on the agenda or anything in general, as a matter of fact, please step forward. You should limit your comments to 5 minutes per speaker. And please state your name and address when you come forward. Good evening.
My name's Alberta Wolf. I live at 25 Bearhead Road in Medford. Just to reiterate about the library, I spoke to Amy today myself. She encourages everyone who's concerned about keeping the library open to go to the council, to go to the freeholders meeting tomorrow night so it can go on record that the residents of Medford Township are concerned about what the county is going to do about our library. So she said that she will do whatever she can to help us, but we need to approach the county with it. So she did confirm that she spoke to Randy and that, you know, he has been to several meetings regarding the library. So if you're all concerned about what to do about the library, you have to reach out and take yourself to a meeting and tell the county that you want the library to stay, and they will put it on their agenda, but it is not on the agenda. So I just wanted everybody to know that they're willing to work with you, but you have to go forward and ask them for help.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Anyone else? Mr. Powell?
Terry Pomerell, Avenue. Hi, been a long time, huh? I've been busy. The leaves, we were talking about, actually, I was just wondering about the salaries, if you were going to take the stipend that's already been set, or from the way I heard it, it sounded like you guys were going to make a salary.
Oh yeah, we're going to build a Taj Mahal.
You know, hey, I've been coming to these meetings for umpteen years. I've seen stranger things happen.
I know.
So it's the stipend that's already in the ordinance, and that's, you're entitled to that, and that's fun. Back to the leaves. I know that they collected them at one time already, and like within a week, this street was full, and it's a hazard between the leaves, trash cans, recycling, basketball nets.
Which street?
White Pine. Bad. And you got all those school buses trying to squeeze in and out, you know, like pushing each other off the road, not to mention the parents flying. For you have to get out of that.
Remind them to slow down.
You try, you do one of these and they kind of, it gets ugly. But yeah, if there's something, not that, because they put them right back out there as soon as they were picked up. Not that they deserve special treatment on having them picked up twice. However, it is a hazard for the buses. So if there's a way that, and then maybe when you like send out, knock on their doors and say, yo, not in the streets, because they are in the streets. All the piles, and it's, try it out. It's interesting. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else? Mr. Deal?
Chuck Teal, 5 Cobbler Court. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
New mayor. I went on to the website to get the printout on today's meeting, and just for the heck of it, I wanted to see what the salaries and compensation for what's going on in the town, and I couldn't get that. It said there was a little notation before you could get that information, but it said you had to go to the clerk and request an Oprah request and get a hard copy. And my question is, before...
I have a copy.
Okay, I couldn't get it off the web through this ecode360.com, and it wouldn't come up.
I couldn't get it either.
So I would appreciate it to have that posted information readily, because we're in a transparent and open council, and it make it a lot easier for town residents to know, what's going on. And you guys are on, I know you're negotiating some contracts, and it would be helpful for people to know, what's going on in the town. And speaking of contracts, I was going through my notes from previous meetings, and I noticed back in 2010, it was in the Courier Post, that there was a 23% increase that occurred for pension and health benefits that was outside the 2% cap. And I was just curious, we're coming into 2013, because it's not capped. Is it going to be, the pension and health benefits going to be 10%, 15%? This was statewide, by the way. It wasn't just local. It was statewide that it was...
We've actually taken some actions with regard at least to the health benefits. Pension benefits, I can't speak to.
Yeah, the pension's dictated by state statute.
And I just wonder, we have these, there's these caps, but the caps are only good, and when 1/3 of your cost is, for a compensation is pension and health care, and that's going up 23% a year.
Right.
Well, just look at last year, our actual number that was inside the 2% cap was
Right.
around 7%.
7%.
So we could have last year raised taxes 7% without a referendum.
Right.
Yeah, there are certain exceptions in the law. Some of this was residual from when they phased in, the towns were phasing in, paying back. And remember, there was a pension holiday Governor Whitman gave the
Right.
towns.
And I know we didn't do that.
Right.
Yes, we did. Oh, we did?
Oh, yes.
So that, in part, some of that was the tail end of that. Some of that was also the reforms in which, and employees have been paying into the system, but there were increases by statute that we pay more into the system. So, as well as the towns. So I think at the time, 2010, I have to go back, they allowed the exception that year to be able to absorb that hit that the towns were taking. But for the most part, I don't think we're outside of, I have to double check, but we get the numbers from the state. We had our numbers for 2013 when last?
October, I believe.
Yeah, the state gives them to us.
In October.
Yeah, and some of it is, we've lost employees, but it's not the current.
Will you be able to share that with the residents?
Oh yeah, once the pension
You
numbers.
can email me, I'll give you the.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do all that.
I appreciate that. It's one of those things, you guys have a really very difficult job, because there's a lot of things you don't control. That the state, these are the state that's mandating some of these things, and as residents, we pick up the tab because the state representatives aren't doing their jobs. And that, we're talking about budgets as we're coming up, and of course, what was brought up, and I drive by on Main Street, that meeting house that's sitting empty there, and as an empty building, it's been empty for 2-3 years. I know we put a new roof, the town put a new roof on that building for like $250,000. I think we have $500,000 sitting into this. That was a bargain at $250,000, and it's a beautiful historical property. But I think as a resident, and we're looking for revenue and things like that, we should put that out for bid with a minimum bid of maybe $250,000, and with this rehabilitation that they're talking about. That would be a beautiful property for a professional office or someone to convert to condominiums and get that 5-year abatement on there. And we would have a tax, something on the tax roll. Right now, it's on the township, and it doesn't create any taxes. and it's a burden, and that building, as long as it sits empty, it's going to deteriorate more and more, it's, you know, and especially in the wintertime. So it behooves us to get rid of it. If we're not going to use it, get rid of it.
Mr. Neal, just so you're aware, and maybe, you know, I don't know if you're, at one point, there was a commercial buyer for that building prior to the town. Part of the problem was Pinelands.
Yeah, Pinelands, but at this
That-
point...
I understand, but that won't go away.
That will go away.
No, Pinelands will not go
Well, we
away.
should be able to help that individual or whatever. We should put it up for bid, and with all the resources we have in the town, we should get it off our rolls and make it a taxable property. This is a burden that, you know, and that's just one example, but...
We're going to go through a comprehensive analysis of all township owned property and see what needs
Well, that's
to
an easy one.
be disposed of.
That's an easy one to get rid of.
We missed the last one, last meeting. We talked about that.
Right. Yeah, and I think it should be talked about until we get rid of it. And the last thing is your salaries. I mean, some of you are doing better than others and whatever, and you're all putting time in and energy, and maybe you can't afford to put it because of budget reasons, you know, but I think you should be compensated something, maybe 50% to just cover your expenses, and next year make it 100%, you know, whatever. But you definitely should be compensated for your time. You know, the old adage, if it's for free, is it really worth it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Youngkin?
George Youngkin, 13 Reaching Court, good evening, gentlemen. I met with the Pinelands branch manager at the library on Main Street this week. I talked to Mr. Pace on the phone about it, and I sent some of you an email with a list of items. What I had proposed was a bunch of volunteers wanted to get together and fill in the gaps for some of the maintenance issues that are at the library. Some of them were minor issues, and some of them were a little bit more detailed. I currently have some scouts looking for Eagle projects, so we haven't really developed a plan. We're in the initial stages, but I have a wish list. I don't know if you guys want a copy of this wish list. I sent the manager a copy of the email as well. And just looking for your blessing as far as getting in there and you know, helping out, sprucing the place up, making it look good.
Okay. Yeah, I got the email. I saw it. Mr. Manager, I think I posed this question before. Have we had any contact from the library branch manager in terms of requesting?
As of today, nothing through my office, nothing through Public Works.
Okay.
Some of the things in there, Frank, are like if you walk onto the kids' side of the room to the left, it's very bright in there. But if you walk onto the right side, over 50% of the lights are out. It's very dull in there. I mean, that's one of the more easy things to do. Some of it just requires cleaning windows, caulking things, you know, minor stuff that it just takes time to get in there and do. And we have people that would like to participate.
Right, I understood, but I mean, one of the things that, you know, obviously as we've been doing for a year now, we're trying to put into place a structure with regard to the county to make sure that they fulfill their obligations with regard to the contribution that the residents of Medford make to the library system. We contribute $1 million a year to that library system. It's about 7% of the total budget we contribute alone. When you count in the residents of Chemung, Tabernacle, Southampton, it's closer, it's over 10% of their budget. And those people use our library primarily. So what we've been trying to do with the negotiations with the county is to get them to fulfill their obligation to maintain that building. We want them to maintain that building. They should maintain that building. Yes, I know we own it. We're the landlord, but we rent it to them for $1 a year. I mean, so essentially we give it to them. And I don't know, do we ever get that $1?
Not that I've ever seen.
Okay. We don't even get the $1. So, I mean, the point is that you know, I commend you for taking the initiative to do that, but I think that your request is better, you know, postured in front of the freeholders.
Absolutely, I had planned on going to tomorrow night.
Because, again, I mean, from our position, it's their responsibility to maintain that building And that's what we're trying to, again, to put in a structure where they recognize that.
Let me ask you a question on that point. Is that something that, I don't know if you can answer that question, that council's trying to negotiate, or is that something that's already of an understanding? I mean, do they realize that it's
In the past, we have maintained the building, but we haven't had an agreement with them for the last year.
Was it a handshake agreement?
No, it was a written agreement.
It was a written agreement that said that we were responsible for maintaining that building. Last year, we asked them, or we told them, we no longer wanted to be responsible.
Right.
Our agreement expired, so there hasn't been an agreement for a year. And we've been talking to them for about a year now about a new agreement. That's what Councilman Pace was talking about.
I thought we were given an agreement in principle. I thought we did have more or less a handshake saying that they will take over the maintenance. They told us it's an empty promise.
Right.
I mean, believe me, I don't have any objection to what you're proposing, but, I mean, from our standpoint, I think they need to weigh in on it.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Over on the children's side, if there's a piece of construction paper about 5 feet wide, it says area under construction. It has a date on there. It's over a year and a half old. And you lift it up, and it's just a matter of the drywall's like starting to deteriorate. It needs to be cut out, put in there some molding, you know.
Let me ask you a question.
Mr. Bowling, if I may, real quick, just so we get some perspective here. Long-term, the county had no interest in helping Medford with that Pinelands Ranch Library, because long-term, back in 2001, Medford Township, started entertaining the idea that we would borrow $4.5–5 million to build a new library for the county. Okay, that went by the wayside as a result of time and people trying to figure out a way to best do this. There was even an idea floated at some point that Medford Township would get a brand new municipal building for free. There was never any plan to get a municipal building for free. There was a plan for Medford taxpayers to fund a brand new library on top of the dedicated library tax that we already provide. Your government isn't working for you. I've encouraged everybody over the course of the past year to get involved. Insofar as volunteers go at the library, again, the bottom line is it's a county library. We have enough to do in Medford for volunteers without, sending them to the county. The county library has a whole volunteer organization designed to take up the slack for what they're not able to spend enough tax money on. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
We talked about some of those groups, and I think we came to an understanding about their involvement, and some of that involvement. I wouldn't be kind. I mean, some of these people are getting off in age now, so I don't know what they're capable of contributing as far as just talk about doing minor repairs.
I understand you are. And those minor repairs, if we just simply spent the tax dollars, the county took $4.2 million in 3 years. They were running a surplus, and the county swiped it to pay their bills.
We've talked about this. That's your fight.
That's why that's the public's fight.
That's our fight.
I'm fighting it, but it's the public's fight. That library is deteriorating because of the county library's inability to properly fund and maintain it. That's the only reason it's deteriorating. Medford Township spent $80,000 just to come up with a cockamamie plan to build a new library. $80,000 of taxpayers' money. And the county knew it. Did they care? No. What happened was we sent those people that did that to higher public office. To answer your question, Mr. Youngkin, go to the freeholder meeting tomorrow and tell them what I just told you.
He's going to
tell Mr. Donnelly that the $605,000 that they're actually spending to operate this library locally leaves us about $400,000 short.
Let me ask you this, because when you go in there and you describe it, like you go in the library, and I look and I'm like, okay, $1 million a year. I don't see it. Do you see it? Do you think we're getting our money's worth?
No.
So why do you want to enable that bad behavior?
Well,
we could do it now.
That's what we're doing.
I think it's important to the community. I think a library is a community asset, but this is a really important issue.
let's go
Here's
to
what
put
I
them
would-
on the hook tomorrow, we'll find out.
Well, that's, there you go. If you really want to be effective with this, we need to put pressure on the county we want our money's worth. We're paying over $1 million a year, okay? And we combine people around us. Where does that money go? Why is it costing that much money to run that library? And I would say, you guys, you've been involved in some volunteer efforts in cleaning up Freedom Park and some of those things, and I think they're great. I think in principle, the idea of, one of the things that we've been promoting and one of the things that we've been pretty successful is having private organizations. And it's not, it's because the residents of Medford care, it's not us. The residents care enough about their town that there's been a lot of volunteerism, and we're learning as a community that government doesn't have to do everything for us. In the case of the library, the state requires we collect that tax. We need to get our money's worth. My only reason I hesitate is I don't believe in enabling bad behavior.
Well, let me ask you a question. Go back to that $1 million. So we have a breakdown of where that money goes or how that's being spent. Is some of that involved in salaries and materials and utilities?
The county library's dedicated library tax is 11 point something. Just $11 million.
But that goes in all the rest of the libraries, right?
9.2 of that 11 million is salaries, wages, and benefits. The county overspent on building a brand new amphitheater at the main library.
Using your tax dollars.
Using your tax dollars. Again, that $4.2 million they took out of surplus for the library should have gone to pay for that new library building, but it didn't. It went to pay for maintenance expenses. A large portion went to pay for maintenance expenses. Well, I'm trying to figure out, and I asked for those numbers, and what I got was, well, $925,000 went to this. And it just, quite frankly, it wasn't detailed enough, and it didn't add up. So again, those questions, what you're after, the county has, and for the same reason they won't put it on their agenda, if they ignore it long enough, it'll go away. Those people in Medford were willing to bond $4.5 million to build us a new library. I'm sure if we ignore them long enough, they'll go back to that plan.
So we go in there, we do the repairs, right? We do their work that they're obligated to do for them. And what happened? And now we're still not getting our money's worth. That's why it's like an alcoholic. You don't enable bad behavior because it just makes the problem worse. We want something that is going to be long-term, that's going to be sustainable, that will get us something. For that much money, we should have a jewel for the town of Medford. We should have something that is a resource for the citizens where people can come and spend time and be downtown. And while you're there, you know what? There's lots of other things to do. I love the idea of something more state-of-the-art. And I'm telling you, I'm already working on some things. And that's as far as I'm going to go. But I think there are some great ways that we can use that money and give ourselves a high-end learning center that is far more than what we have right there. That would be a valuable asset for every aspect of this community. Because I think that we're the type of community that would know how to take advantage of it. I think that we could do a lot better.
No, that's okay, but
I'm going to go to the meeting,
like a duck on a June bug, we're all over it.
Well, what I would say to you is that I applaud the initiative, the effort, and I encourage you to go there and talk with them.
Okay.
If you're looking for an Eagle Scout project, the ball field bleachers at Bunning Field, if you get with NYAA, because they're responsible for that field maintenance now, that would be a great Eagle Scout project. If you get with the manager, or actually if you get with Beth Porticalis, she could probably come up with a
Yeah.
laundry list of Eagle Scout.
Over the
projects
years, she's
we've done.
provided me a lot. Unfortunately, we only have one or two kids right now, but one of the projects was that the stairway or handicap ramp at the Dr. Still project the other day, so we're looking at that as well. So yeah, there's no shortage of projects.
Speaking of the Dr. Still project, we didn't mention that
All right,
earlier.
thank
There
you.
were 60 volunteers out at the Webster property and Dr. Still property on Saturday? When it was
Monday.
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 Monday, I'm sorry, that's right. Martin Luther King. It was freezing cold, but 60 people. It was amazing. Thank you, Beth, for the count.
Hi, I'm here to talk about the library too. I understand that you do not want to get the improvements made because you're fighting the county, but.
Well, no. I like I
So
said.
you had a contract, and from what I understand, the contract says that we were responsible to take care of the buildings. And since then, there was no other contract saying that the township was, or, I mean, the county was supposed to take care of the buildings.
It was a big deal that we didn't renew.
But what I'm saying is that now no one's taking care of the building, or very little is being done to maintain the building at our sacrifice. So we put a lot of money into being part of the system, and now the seniors are going, and people are going. Actually, I have a hard time seeing with the lack of light. And I don't think that the investment that we made, the millions of dollars that were invested in the library, should be ignored, and the library system should be neglected due to lack of a contract.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
Well, then, what I'd like from you today is for everybody to agree that you will not stand in the way of us doing and moving forward to help improve the library, and that we will go to the county and we will communicate with them that we want their blessing, and we want them to realize that our library is important to us and that we have contributed to their system and that we need for them to give back to us.
I think it's a good idea to let them know that. I just, look, if you want, that course of action is fine, but what I don't like about the idea is strictly from a standpoint, it's like we're letting them get away with it.
But light bulbs?
They should be fixing those light bulbs. We paid for those light bulbs, now we're gonna go in and pay for them again.
So we're sacrificing, I don't understand that for building maintenance, they have, I'm sorry, they have brick work that needs to be done outside, so maybe you don't want us to do that, but can't we have light bulbs? I mean, that just seems foolish.
You know, and
You can make that
I agree, again, I agree with you 100%.
But the county doesn't care that we don't have light. We care.
Hold
So
on.
we're being foolish.
It's not this governing body's decision to put a light bulb in that building or not put a light bulb in that building. Okay?
Why would you say that?
It's not our decision.
Why would you say that?
The county.
It's our library.
Allow me to finish.
No, but I don't understand, so I would like you to back up a little and explain to me why.
If the county goes in to put in a light bulb, that's great. In the past, when we had a contract, the librarian over there would contact the township, and the township would send employees over there to do that. Okay? That contract no longer exists. So if there's maintenance that needs to be accomplished, okay, quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me who does it. If you want to assemble a group of volunteers, I applaud you for doing that. But those group of volunteers are going to have to hold Medford Township harmless. If we send volunteers into that building to do work and somebody gets hurt, or as a result of the work that was performed, somebody else gets hurt, now the township's liable, and I cannot put the township in that position. Now, I explained all of this on the phone to Mr. Junkin. I don't know whether you've had any conversations with him or not in this regard. Again, if we can enter into an agreement and have, you know, that agreement in place, I got no problem with that.
Do you have a form?
Do I have a
Like a
form?
waiver
No,
form.
I did
Does
not
the
have.
township- Not you personally, but the township, for insurance waiver, that we would do the work without.
Those are questions you're going to have to pose to the manager. That's what he does. But again, from this governing body's perspective, I think we pretty much summed up where we're at on the library.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you're not going to stand in the way, but that you want the county to take responsibility for the library.
I'm not going to enter into a contract with anybody but the county.
Let the manager
Well,
speak.
And I don't want to speak out of turn, but obviously I have voice in this forum. And Mr. Beanstalk, Councilman Pace and I attended a meeting with the county. My interpretation, they knew as of December 31st, 2012, going into 13, there was a verbal that they would handle 2013. That's how I interpreted that end of that meeting. I don't know if you did, but we wanted relief from last year. They said that the two freeholders, now again, there's two of them, but when you go into these meetings, you go in and you take them on their word. One of them is no longer there, but.
No, both of them are no longer there.
No, Sarter's still there. Sarter one of the. So they asked us to just absorb 2012, which we did. Going into 13, they would react favorably to us getting out of that component of the business. Contracts, and again, I look at it from a historical perspective. The county had no game plan when they expanded the county system. Town said, I want a building, or I want a library in my town. The county said, you provide a building, you do this, and we'll do it. You can see it by the development of the library system in the county from my perspective. You have towns with county library next to other towns a mile away from each other. So the whole system, the way it developed, and I think we tried to convey that. And I think what council's, again, my interpretation of what council's upset with, and I'm upset with it at other levels of government, Medford residents are sending money everywhere else and not getting a return back in that money. There's a law pending, I was asking the chief, the cell phone, the text law is pending. Right now, the old way, for example, if you got a text message, if you got pulled over for text messaging, the $100 fine was divvied up. The new law, it's $200 you're going to pay, and it all goes to Trent. It doesn't cut. So your resources are being used in this town, and the money is going elsewhere. It's everywhere, and I gotta say, my 15 years as council has exposed more than I even could imagine with some of the things that they looked into. So, so that's been my interpretation. If council's policy is, right now is that there was not going to be funding in the 2013 budget because of that meeting with the freeholders. So I support, obviously, the policy of the governing body is to put pressure on the freeholders to own up to. And again, that body has changed. But you know what? If you're going to sit with municipal officials and try to work it out, again, I'm going to take you on their word for it. And that's what I interpreted coming out of the meeting. But, so as far as liability, we are working with our insurance company to protect volunteers who want to come in and do certain work. We have to segregate out what that work can be. So for example, if you were doing work using power tools and you don't use power tools normally, you wouldn't be allowed for us. So somebody who does that type of work, they might be a carpenter or whatever, they could do that type of volunteer. I would have to communicate out to the GIF, the Joint Insurance Fund, about how they want us to handle it while we're developing that policy. But it is possible. We've talked about that. So I think, and I'll refer to Mr. Youngkin too, if you go tomorrow and the county says we're willing to do whatever and work with you, the town can stand to assist that process. But again, it's got to come from the county at this point.
It's got to come from the county.
And we'll work with
Members of the
it.
town council or the manager?
I'll be there.
You'll be there? Okay, great.
I had planned on attending, but it's my daughter's 17th birthday, so I'll be at Piccadilly on TOC.
Chuck and I will be at a planning board meeting, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir, step forward, please.
It's Frank Colidis, 3 Macclesfield Drive. On the subject of the library, I understand from the manager that there was a conversation, there was an understanding. When you have a meeting like that, something gets written, either by the manager or Mr. Beanstalk, back to those people, or in some way, has this been done and why not?
No, we've been waiting for them. They told us when we met that with them that they would take it. It had to be approved by the full board of freeholders. And they told us they would do that, and they haven't done it.
The meeting was only with 2 of the members, so they have to ratify it as a whole.
As a body.
And put it in writing.
We've been waiting for them to do that since the summer.
Okay, but wouldn't it be a reasonable thing for you to send a letter back to the people that were in the meeting and say, this is our understanding?
Sir, I have communicated on numerous occasions, and I'd be more than happy to sit with you and go over all the communications between the township and the freeholders as it relates to this issue. Safe to say, no less than a dozen pieces of communication between myself and the county, and probably 3 or 4 between the township officially and the county. So, and I have records of all that. I'm more than happy to sit down and go over all that. Yes, we have put it in writing, and
that means
got no
convince
response.
me. I'm trying to get to the point where is the counter pressure on the county to address the issue that we are bringing forward, other than 2 or 3 people going to the freeholders meeting and making comments. There should be, in a negotiation kind of situation, there should be a counter pressure in order that the negotiations reach some common agreement.
And we thought we had that agreement, and we're at a standstill. We've done everything.
You don't
they
have
asked
an
us to
agreement
do.
yet.
You don't have that.
I think Mayor Pace, the last Councilman Pace, the last 2 meetings has reported that he has been pushing back to Ms. Arter, the freeholder who we met with. So there is this back and forth between the levels, the appropriate levels, the governing body level and the freeholder level, about following up. And that is why I think we're having that discussion tonight. Part of the strategy is obviously a public dialogue, whether residents choose to go or not. But this governing body has chosen to publicly discuss this, and so people understand, I think, where we're at in this process.
Yeah, we're looking for something that will last long term. Long term, I don't want to pay $1 million a year in taxes, have a third-rate facility, have to also provide the building, and pay for all the maintenance.
So I am not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. Anytime that you have a negotiation going on, though, the 2 parties are looking from the other to provide something. In this
We provided them a written contract, a draft.
Yes.
We provided that to them. They've taken no action. They have not put it on their agenda. I don't know why. I've asked repeatedly, and the answer I get is, we're working on it. If I've spoke to the Burlington County Library director, the director of the system. When I first started this process a year ago, I went to the director of the library. I didn't go to the freeholder, because I wanted to get information about how the system worked. Well, I went to her. They replaced her because her answer was, we're going to shut the Pinelands branch down if you don't sign that contract. Well, that wasn't acceptable to me, and I asked for the public support in letting the county know that's not what we want. And then, when the new director got there, I had a conversation with her late last year regarding the 2013 budget. She had no intention of including any maintenance costs for Medford Township's Pinelands branch. I relayed that information to the freeholders because we had had several meetings since I first contacted the library director and the end of the year. So it's not like the county doesn't know what's going on and what this governing body has done over the course of the last year. Again, the only solution to this problem is for Medford residents to go en masse to that county freeholder board meeting and say, we're sick and tired of you doing what you're doing. The people in Tabernacle and Shamong enjoy the Pinelands Branch Library. They have a dedicated library tax. Do you think that the county somehow can afford to pay the maintenance on that Pinelands Library branch? To replace a light bulb? They have the assets. We don't even have the public works employees to send over there anymore. The county does.
What I hear is that this body has no leverage in a situation
Absolutely not. The leverage belongs to the public.
Where Medford is paying $1 million.
No, the state doesn't give us any leverage.
Yeah, we don't pay directly to the county.
We don't dictate to the state how it works. They dictate to us how it works. I would love to be able to tell you that, you know, I can go to Trenton and say, stop wasting our money. You know, the federal government put us $16.5 trillion in debt. You know, I have no impact on there other than gathering thousands of people together and saying, put a stop to it. That's what I did 4 years ago when I first walked through that door. The people up here were wasting my tax dollar, and I got fed up with it. The people in this community have to stand with this governing body until the county, until Trenton stop it.
Now, there is one piece of leverage we have.
Yes.
We can pull out of the county system. That's our really only piece of leverage that we have. But that's not a first
Some leverage has to be used other than 2 or 3 people going there and asking the question, why is not on your agenda?
And that's the residents who pay taxes to the county have to hold the county accountable.
You cannot refuse to pay the library tax to the county.
Right,
And that's why we don't have leverage, because the county gets that
Mandated
money
by state
no
law.
matter what we do. That gets paid to them by the residents of Medford Township and the other residents of Burlington County. They get that, so you're right. To a large extent, we do not have leverage.
Now,
where's the main
I would say the best thing to do
for the
would
county?
be to let the county know that they need to be held to account. Like I said, I appreciate the idea of volunteerism, but I'm not so sure that letting them off the hook is the best way to go either.
I am with you on that subject, okay, I'm with you on it, but I'm looking to kind of see where the leverage is to get action, because I have been hearing this for a year.
That's a ballot box.
It's called November.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just guys, can I?
Yes, please,
My name is Albert Wolf, I live at 25 Bearhead Road. It's very easy for everybody to come here and use that famous word, you, meaning this council. It is not this council, it is definitely the county. I spoke to them today, they're aware of it, they spoke to Mr. Pace. I, as a resident, don't have children, don't use the library, and my tax dollars are going there, and I'm angry about that. They owe it to us to fix that library, and we as citizens must go there and tell them that. If you can come here and point your finger at these guys, then you need to go to those freeholders and point your finger at them because they're getting your money. These guys are not getting your money. The township doesn't get one dime of that county money. So it's not their responsibility to fix that library.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Stahl.
Earl Stoll, 25 Foster Road. I hate to change the conversation from library to trash. But I was just wondering if Mr. Schultz, I could talk to you offline, but maybe perhaps if you look at the 8,400 units, how many of the 8,400 residential units, which are residential, don't have lids on? which may be increasing the tipping fees too.
Yeah, most of those, the town has been very aggressive with the residential. The 300-gallon containers are no longer, they're cost prohibitive, and the town eventually stopped buying inventory for that. But as those cans broke down, the town should have been out there pulling them back in when they observed that. So we're now just, again, it's a process. But most of the residential ones, and the new vendors are aware of that, to keep an eye on that. 'Cause a lot of people don't think about water weight. You're paying for water weight at times if the cans lids are up and then we get rain and stuff.
And the reason it's on my mind is I'm an offender in that, so I'll get rid of this.
Just let us know.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Keep it in on it all, that's all.
Okay, anyone else? Public comment? Mr. Magley, please step forward.
Joe Magley, 38 South Main Street property owner. Just some information for the redevelopment area. You were talking about taxes and an abatement for the taxes. Rehabilitation area. Basically, if everything improves and somebody does an addition, yes, they won't pay taxes on that, but the whole area will improve and the rents that people will get will increase. And ratables are based on the amount of rents that you get. And so the whole town will have, you know, you'll get more tax revenue coming in. So, I just wanted to point that out to you. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No, if not, do I have a motion to close the public comment?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, because of this discussion. I want people to be aware, there's a bill that was posted today on the Open Public Meetings Act to change elements that we are going to absorb as a municipality to do what the state now wants us to do. Do you know who's exempt from it? The legislature. This is the stuff you're getting from me as the management level and council from the policy making level. The layers of government that they push down, but they don't own up to it at their level. So they're going to make more work for the few people in this town, staff-wise, more of your tax dollars to make that work happen, and they're exempt from it. That is in part what we're trying to communicate, that I'm trying to communicate, is the frustration that the trickle down at certain levels of government. And you want to come call me offline, because there's a list of things. Council knows I want to have a discussion with Congressman Runyon on federal stuff that trickles down that we're paying for. That is just, to me, slowly what's helped deteriorate this country financially. So, anyway, I just wanted to be aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. All right, next item is bill list. We have no bill list, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, no ordinances for second reading. We have an ordinance for first reading, and it is the sign ordinance, and it's ordinance 2013-1. An ordinance of the Township of Medford amending and supplementing various signage standards within land development ordinance sections 203, 401, 402, 403, 404, 405, 406, 410, 410B, 411, 412, 413, 414, 415, 526, 602, 608, to provide efficient and controlled standards for signs that balance the aesthetic and economic development needs of the Township of Medford. Do I have a motion for approval of ordinance 2013-1?
For introduction.
We have to reread the whole thing, the motion.
You have to read it by title.
Didn't I just do that?
You did a great job.
But now one of us has to do it again. Motion to approve ordinance number 2013-1, an ordinance of the Township of Medford amending and supplementing various signage standards within land development ordinance sections 203 definitions, 401 general district regulations, 402 GMS district, 403 GMS district, 404, 405, 406, 410, 410B, 411, 412, 413, 414, 415, 526, 602, 608, to provide efficient and controlled standards for signs that balance the aesthetic and economic development needs of the Township of Medford.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Chuck. Do I have let me see here. All right, set the date for public hearing. It will be February, or no?
This has to go to
This has to go to planning
planning board,
board.
comes back, so
All right,
I
so-
would say the first meeting in March.
March.
Yes.
Is it March 5th?
Yes.
Okay, so public hearing date is March 5th. Any council comments on the sign ordinance? If not, do I have a roll call vote for approval of ordinance first reading for ordinance 2013-1?
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Bonney?
Aye.
Mayor Check, aye.
Aye. All right, next item is the consent agenda resolutions. We have pulled Resolution 18-2013, authorizing settlement of litigation to be discussed in executive session. And so we have Resolution 19-2013, approving request for final release of maintenance guarantee, Orleans Land Development, Jennings Mill, Hartford intersection, and Resolution 20-2013, approving request for final release of maintenance guarantee, Cobra Construction Company, 108 Route 70. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda resolutions?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Beanstalk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Do I have a motion for, or voice vote for approval? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Resolution ES 0122-2013, executive session. Matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and attorney-client privileges, Ushman versus Township of Medford. Matters relating to collective bargaining and/or employment relationship, status of contract with the UAW units. Matters relating to the employment relationship, municipal judge vacancy. Matters relating to the employment relationship, professional appointments for engineer and planner. Matters relating to purchase, lease, or acquisition of lease of acquisition of real property or investment of public funds, sanitation equipment. Matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and the attorney-client privilege, Murphy versus Medford Township Zoning Board. Matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and the attorney-client privilege relating to contract for Adler Excavating. Matters relating to litigation, negotiation, and the attorney-client privilege, DEP versus Centennial Land and Development Corp., and also Resolution 18-2013, authorizing settlement of litigation. Is that it?
Matter relating to litigation, negotiation, attorney-client privilege, Village Point Bridge.
Okay, and Village Point Bridge litigation. Do I have a motion for ES 0122-2013?
So moved.
Second, please. Thank you, Mr. Roney. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, well, we're going to move into executive session. Action may be taken.